إن الحمد لله نحمده تعالى ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله الله تعالى بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره الكافرون. نحمده تعالى على نعمائه لا نحصي ثناء عليه، وكما أثنى على نفسه أو أثنى عليه رسوله عليه الصلاة والسلام. نشكره ولا نكفره، نؤمن به ونتوكل عليه، هو مولانا وعلى الله فليتوكل المؤمنون. ثم أما بعد أحبتي في الله. Before I start my khutbah today, I'd like to remind all of us that the Jum'ah, khutbah and prayer are connected. And there are rules to fulfill them. The khutbah is not an optional ritual that one could listen or not, or have themselves busy doing something else or not. It is mandated on those who are attending the khutbah to give all the attention they have into listening to the khutbah. And if any one of them was to distract themselves, even with playing with the rocks or the carpet, it violates the khutbah. Now imagine if you're attending the khutbah and you're busy with the phone. That's even worse than playing with the rocks. At least, if one is playing with the rocks, they're daydreaming. They're distracting themselves. But someone having the phone during the khutbah is communicating with someone else. And I wonder who that someone else will be, if they are important as a rule that Allah Ta'ala has established for this ritual. You are in the presence of an ibadah, you are in prayer. Regardless if you like the khatib or not, or the khutbah is interesting or not, you are still in an ibadah. So the moment that you are texting someone else, or talking to someone else, or surfing the net, you're disregarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at His home. If one was going to visit someone, or enter a principal's office, or their boss at their employment, they wouldn't be taking the phone and sitting there texting or talking or surfing. They would be attentive and listening. We've addressed this time and time again. But every week, I tend to still see some of us in this place, as the khutbah goes on, someone's on their phone. It's like that, you talk and it just reaches deaf ears. And sometimes we wonder why we are pitiful as an ummah if you can't even follow the simplest of rules of just attending salah. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but the truth of the fact is, that is where we are. If I can't give 30 minutes, 20 minutes of full attention to what might be a life-changing moment for me, or at least that I'm following the rules. The angels themselves attend this khutbah in this prayer. And the moment the imam gets up to the minbar to start the khutbah, they sit to listen. They no longer write who comes in late or not. They will stop the attendance the moment the khutbah starts. So everyone that comes after that, they're absent. But at least have some decency, honestly, to keep your phone away from your hand at least for 20 minutes. What would the world go to if you leave it for 20 minutes? Our fingers are not on the atomic bombs, nuclear weapons. We're all worthless in our small circle of world if we truly say so. Nothing we will miss that matters within 20 minutes. So, I hope, I pray, that we will respect the salat, the khutbah, the masjid, and we don't see this again in upcoming weeks. But I will continue to address this. You come, and you're coming for Allah Ta'ala. When you leave, you go back to the dunya. The Sahaba were attending the Jum'ah Salah with the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and they heard what's more important than you texting your friend. They heard the caravan coming into the city with all the goods that they need to survive. They left the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam standing giving the khutbah so they can march to the caravan to buy the goods for their families to survive. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressed this group as people of no common sense. And if they would have stayed in the khutbah, it would have been better than what they went for of dunya. قُلْ مَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ. What Allah has is better. I would love for us to leave our phones in the car, if possible. But at least leave it in your pocket. No excuse for anyone in 20 minutes to have their phones in their hands. We will not let that pass anymore. I will address it as many times as I can to make sure that no one has it. If you feel embarrassed because I addressed this and someone noticed you had the phone, it's on you. It's not on me. It's on you. It's not on me. Going back to our topic. And I apologize again. The topic is extremely important, and I just took away 7 minutes from my time. Allah Ta'ala in the Quran al-Kareem mentioned stories, many stories. And when he explained why he mentioned these stories, he said, كَذَلِكَ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الرُّسُلِ مَا نُثَبِّتُ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ. And we have detailed many stories so we can affirm your heart. Remembering history is important for us to build our future. Remembering history gives us confidence that the status quo will eventually change. Remembering history inspires us to follow suit with those that change their status quo to something better. Without history, we might hit a wall thinking that nothing in this world will change. And we will find ourselves engulfed in the sadness and loss of hope, knowing that the world in general is going against us, and the weakness that we are suffering, the betrayal of what we experience. Without history, we will be entangled in the web of no ending. But with history, it allows us to understand that tomorrow is a new day. And with it being a new day, there's a new hope. And since there's hope, then I have a hand to reach that hope and make a difference. وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. It is the days we switch it between people, or alternate it amongst the people. You have the good and the bad days, you'll always do. And if we can remember just in history that the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam at one moment was hiding with his companions in a cave, fleeing for his life. On another moment, we can remember that just out the outdoors of his home, there were folks with swords waiting to assassinate. And we can just remember that during the Battle of Uhud, that he fell into a ditch where his cheeks were injured and he himself was bloody. And folks thought that he has perished, and they said, Muhammad qad mat, that Muhammad had died. But we can also remember, years later, folds and folds and folds of Arabian tribes marched to Medina to give allegiance to the Rasul in declaring their faith. وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. There is this religious group in this country. At one time in history, back in the 19th century, they were vilified. They were attacked, killed, massacred, abused. Their principles were degraded, and massive movements were established to put an end to them. The Catholics at one moment within our history probably saw more than what we see today that's happening against us in the States and in the Western world. Catholics came to the United States fleeing with their faith, only to find the Protestants that existed here looking at them with hate and animosity, to where one of them, or they would refer the Pope himself as the whore of Babylon. The most pinnacle figure in Catholic was addressed with such disgrace and disrespect. In 1556, what we know today as Florida, there was a whole colony of Catholics that were slaughtered and killed. They were considered the Antichrist, as they were referenced. We can see during those days, Catholics were looked at as uncivilized group, less white, banned from politics. I'm talking about here in the United States. Even though Catholics came from Europe, but their whiteness was not white enough. There's a gentleman by the name of Lehman Beecher. He is a co-founder of the American Transparency Society. This is a society that totally existed to go against the Catholics. He said the Catholics will take our jobs. Does that sound familiar to you? He wanted to stop the flood of migrants of Catholics. He said because if we allow them to come, they will take our jobs. They will spread disease and crime and plot to install the Pope into power. Does that resonate with y'all? The Pope, Sharia. In 1844, in Philadelphia, the Catholic churches were burnt while people were inside of it. History repeats. So we don't get stuck with what happened in history. We try to understand what changed that history. We've all heard of the Ku Klux Klan. There were groups of Protestants who would wear all white with hoodies, with hoods, and they would march to kill anyone that is not one of them, but specifically Catholics. They would burn them and lynch them alive. Add to it, then the African Americans came late. Mark Twain, one of the well-known names, if you ever went to school here, he said they were taught, they were educated to blame everything that is evil on the Catholics. Whatever bad happens, it happened because of the Catholics. Writers and intellectuals had no intention of bashing the Catholics as the source of every evil that happens. In the late 19th century, political cartoonist Thomas Nast became a movement. Thomism. Thomas Nast, the cartoonist, said about the Catholics as drunkards, barbarians, unfit for citizenship. Does that sound familiar to you? People don't usually change what's instilled in their core. They will repeat what their forefathers would do, in general. But if you look today at Catholics, the president that's in the Oval Office today is Catholic. In the last 16 years, 4 candidates for the presidencies have been Catholic. There are Supreme Justices today that are Catholics. Judges across the country that are Catholics. The best schools in the country are Catholic schools. The largest hospitals in the country are Catholic hospitals. That didn't come from vacancy. It came from a group of people that did not pity themselves over the hate that they received, but fueled themselves and inspired themselves through the hate that they got to keep moving forward and building something that we look at with awe today. I'm not here praising the Catholics. I'm here saying what they were able to accomplish with such hate and animosity over a century allows us to stand with appreciation. And it also encourages us that we can do the same. We can sit here and cry wolf all we want, but that's not going to move the needle in our favor as we move along. When the Catholics wanted to make a change, they started with having private schools, building the generation. They knew the change will come through their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. They mandated that every church has to have a school, have to teach the principles of Catholicism. And then they had their children engage in what was needed in their daily lives of civic engagement in politics, including the Civil War. They had people on both sides. They were divided to the core, but they knew that they needed to be united if they are to stay relevant. Those children, those who are in those private schools, are the leaders that we see today. We start seeing that from the 1960s. The killing of John F. Kennedy, who was a Catholic, allowed them to utilize everything that they have to where they are today. The Muslim community has more today to offer in building themselves than the Catholics had when they came from Europe. But we fail to know the importance of our children. We don't prep them to be leaders of the future because we don't show them that it matters and a change can be. We have about 6 million, as some say, maybe up to 10 million Muslims in the United States. But I can count less 1% of us as Muslims engaged in public service, engaged in the political arena, having our children prepped to lead, not follow. Our voices matter, and they can make a change. Our voices matter, and they can make a change. Just like it changed for the Catholics, it changed for the Jews, it changed for the Mormons, it is changing for the African Americans. It can also change for us. It starts with us believing that we belong. We're not going away. And if I belong, my voice has some strength and power. And if my voice has some strength and power, then I should be involved so it can be heard. And the first step for my voice to be heard is that I register to vote. And if you're going to argue with me, the system is a scam, why should I waste my time in voting and read history again? If you feel that a change can't happen, so why vote? Just watch the universities today. Forcing the media and international world leaders to change the tone of what they say. And having universities appease to the demonstrations of the students in universities. Some of those children are yours. We should be inspired. And if someone still tells me voting is haram because it's a testimony for a kafir, and we should not be voting because it's bid'ah, I honestly don't know how to answer that person. In what world that person lives. Because he did not read the Sunnah. Neither did he read the history of our Salaf to know that our Salaf got involved in the politics of their time when the worst of leaders were at the top. And they saw that as means to change. In the meetings that the Rasul ﷺ used to have secretly in Mecca were not just to teach the Quran and the Hadith, but they were means and seeds to change the status quo to where it became a state in Medina, only to conquer Mecca years later. Our history is not about just how to pray, but the prayer is energy within us so we can change the world, not just ourselves. Someone tells me, well, the choices are bad. We have two candidates. Both of them are as bad as the other. It is not who we choose, but what matters is that we choose. And when we choose and grow in our numbers in choosing, then maybe one day the options will be better. Silence is not an option. Silence is cowardly. أقول ما تسمعون وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده تعالى ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ثم أما بعد. Silence allows our representative for our district, our congresswoman for our district, to fly to Tel Aviv, to take photos with Netanyahu, and to encourage the massacre and genocide of our brothers and sisters in Gaza. Why? Because she doesn't fear that we can make the change and she could lose her job. If we were all registered and we all vote, representatives like Marilyn Strickland would not dare to go against our will. But like her, Kathia, like her, there's a lot and many. Because they will receive the funds from those who hate, and they will receive the votes from those who discriminate. It's time. We put aside our bad experiences of voting in our Muslim countries where, yes, votes there don't count. But they do matter here. It is your obligation, I believe, that you register and vote. And your number will matter. Because one day, we'll come together and our voice will be one. And the outcome will be better. And why not? لما تعظون قوما الله مهلكهم أو معذبهم عذابا شديدا قالوا معذرة إلى ربكم لعلهم يرجعون. Why would we think that there's some good in other people when we see how wrong they are and they're destined for hell? Well, maybe because there's a way back for them. Or at least I'll stand in front of Allah Ta'ala and say, I did what I can. As you wake up in the morning to make a living, I'd like to remind you, you're living in the hands of people that they think you're taking their jobs, you're not civilized, not fit for citizenship, you brought diseases, and you're anti-Christ. You take that when you go to work every day and remember that. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا هما إلا فرجته ولا دينا إلا قضيته ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة هي لك رضا ولنا فيها صلاح إلا أعنتنا على قضائها ويسرتها برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين. اللهم قوي أولادنا على نصرة هذا الدين. اللهم مكنهم لنصرة هذا الدين. اللهم مكن أولادنا لنصرة هذا الدين. اللهم اغفر لنا تقصيرنا وعجزنا إنك سميع مجيب الدعوات. اعلموا أحبتي في الله أن الله تعالى يقول إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. ثم اعلموا أن الله تعالى يقول إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروا الله العظيم الجليل يذكركم واشكروه على نعمه يزدكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله أعلم. Before I come down. Our brother Yusuf, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him, his brother passed away. So أسأل الله تعالى أن يغفر لموتانا وموتى المسلمين. اللهم اغفر لموتانا وموتى المسلمين واغفر لأخيه يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعل قبره روضة من رياض الجنة ولا تجعله عليه حفرة من حفر النار. اللهم ابدله دارا خيرا من داره وأهلا خيرا من أهله واغفر لنا وله. اللهم إنه من السابقين ونحن به إن شاء الله من اللاحقين. اللهم اغفر لنا ولهم يا رب العالمين واجمعنا بهم في جنة عرضها السماوات والأرض أعدت للمتقين وأقم الصلاة.
قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
استوى اعتدل تراصل. الله أكبر. سبحانك اللهم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. Selamun Aleyküm ve Rahmetullah. Esselamu Aleyküm ve Rahmetullah.